Welcome back to Capitol Review. I'm Mark Hall. We continue our conversation and reaction to President Trump's Thursday night speech. The president doubling down on election fraud, claiming that he won the 2020 election and that Joe Biden lost, and that China interfered with the election in the 2020 election process. The president lost by around 7 million votes, with Biden winning 306 votes in the Electoral College, Trump having 232. The president and his administration releasing thousands of documents, but experts say that there's no smoking gun. Joining us is Colin, a Republican political strategist and principal at D.C.-based Southern Hill, and also Ashwani Jain, a Democratic political strategist and author of Project 2027, a blueprint for Democrats to take back control of D.C. Gentlemen, welcome back to Capitol Review.
Thanks, Mark.
Colin, let's start with you. Your reaction to President Trump's Thursday night speech.
Well, look, there was a lot of hype going into it. No one quite knew what to expect. And ultimately, the speech was not about the 2020 election. It was about what happens next. And if the president's correct, and if 220 million voter files have been corrupted by the Chinese Communist Party, which I think everyone should agree is one of America's greatest geopolitical adversaries, someone who's trying to undermine our interests every which way, that's something that's serious and warrants getting to the bottom of it. But ultimately, we all should be able to rally around the idea that American elections should be decided by Americans and not foreign adversaries who are constantly seeking to undermine our democracy and the integrity of our elections.
Ashwani, your response.
None of the president's claims are backed up by facts. Look, everyone agrees that only citizens should vote. That's already the law. And despite the president calling mail-in voting corrupt, he uses it himself. Republicans, at the end of the day, run every branch of government. If there were massive voter fraud, they would have prosecuted it, but they can't because it doesn't exist. And Trump-appointed judges keep confirming that, and even the Heritage Foundation turned up only 41 cases of any illegal voting in over 50 years against more than 1 billion votes cast. This is a made-up problem from a guy who refuses to accept that he lost in 2020, and then he tried to overturn that election and even got indicted for it.
Ashwani, you mentioned the Republican Party controls D.C. Is this really about the 2020 election, or is it about the upcoming midterms?
It's all the above. And again, if you look at the record, President Obama ran election security in 2016. It was considered secure. Biden ran it in 2024, secure. The only time a president ever claimed that the election was not secure was 2020. And that was when Trump ran it himself. And in Georgia, a state run by a Republican governor and a Republican Secretary of State, Trump got on the phone and illegally asked them to find him votes. To be clear, this is not only about 2020. It is Trump pre-writing his excuses for a 2026 loss, and then the rest of us trying to entertain his delusions.
Colin, the president has won 2 out of 3 elections. In baseball, that's 667. You hit 3 out of 10 times in baseball, you get to the Hall of Fame. Is it time for him to let voter fraud go and focus more on his promise to Americans here at home?
Yes, the 2020 election was 6 years ago. Joe Biden was elected, and he promptly drove a country off the ditch. And then 4 years later, people had to come along and re-elect Donald Trump to try and right the ship. And that's what happened. And elections are always about the future. They're never about the past. And this president and his allies in Congress will be wise to focus on what's next and reminding people that one half of one of America's major political parties is advocating an all-out embrace of socialism and a return to European-style policies that America fought a war to separate from 250 years ago.
Colin, let's switch gears. We're going to stay with you. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham passed away recently. Your thoughts?
Lindsey Graham was one of one. They don't make him like that anymore on either side of the aisle, unfortunately, and it's why this country and the Senate especially is so gridlocked. Look, you need people like Lindsey Graham who believe what they believe and are willing to stand up and fight for it, but at the same time are willing to reach a hand across the aisle and find some common ground to try and move the country forward. And frankly, absent Susan Collins now on the Republican side, there's very few people left on either side of the aisle who are willing to reach across and make a deal and try and make things a little bit better for everyone in this country.
Ashwani, your reaction to the passing of Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina?
Well, first, no one should celebrate a politician dying, but that also does not mean we have to rewrite how they lived to celebrate a failed legacy. Lindsey Graham was a leader who first called Trump, his words, a race-baiting, xenophobic bigot unfit to lead the men and women in uniform, and then did a 180 and blithely followed Trump, repeating his baseless election fraud lies, backing his reckless Iran war, and echoing his racist language about immigrants. So just to keep the facts straight, we do not need to celebrate a failed legacy.
Ashwani, Jain, Colin, Reed, I thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.